Good morning, everyone, and welcome to week two. Hope that your first week of LRC's fall semester and English 230 went well for you. My dogs would also like to wish you a, a happy week too. A couple of announcements before I go over our second week. First off, my office hours, my student hours are a little bit different this week. I'll write them in the announcements, but the hours are going to be Wednesday evening from 7 to 8 p.m. and then Thursday afternoon from 1:30 to 3:30. The second thing I want to mention is that it's really important for you to be working through the modules. I know that a lot of folks last week just access the assignments off of the to-do list or the dashboard, and you can kind of do that on the first week because we're not really digging into any content yet, but that's changing this week, right? And as I've mentioned last week, about 90% of the class is in the modules. So it's really important for you to be working through the modules. In fact, the way that I have the modules set up is basically how I want you to be working through the material, right? It's not just kind of all thrown in there. There's an order to it. So that way, when you get to the assignments, for example, you've done the readings that are required to do the assignment. And so you'll see this week that you really do need to go back and make sure you're doing all of that reading. So again, make sure that you're working through the modules. The last thing is that later today, a quiz will appear in the module. It's not here now, but it will appear later in the day today. And basically, that's going to be asking you to go back into last week's writing territory and look at some of the comments that I gave you there. I give a lot of comments in the Canvas comments section. And so the quiz is just a little opportunity for you to make sure that you've seen what I've left you there. Okay, with all that in mind, let's jump into week two. Now, you may have noticed that this morning, or yesterday actually, you didn't just get week two. You suddenly now have access to week 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And what I basically did was opened up the entire unit to you, okay? From beginning to where we are here in week 2 to the end of week 6. So if you want to see kind of where we're headed week to week, with the book, with the essay, with the writings, then you can see that entire arc. If you want to work ahead on the writing territories, you certainly can. Keep in mind that, again, each week's work is based on the module for that week. So if you do decide to jump ahead, you're still going to have to work through the modules for that week. But I gave you the full access for the unit, so that way you could kind of see where we're headed. So let's take a look at the week 2 module. That's the only module I'm going to be talking about this week, or today anyway. One of the things that I do want you to at least read is this writing overview for the semester. And on this page, basically, what I'm telling you is what the big essay assignments are going to be for the class. So that way, there are no surprises, right? You know now after reading this, oh, I'm going to be writing this many essays, and here's what each of those essays is going to be about. And then you can kind of begin to ask yourself, like, is this something that I want to be thinking about this semester? Is this something that I want to be writing about? I mean, you're still in that time frame this week anyway, where if you wanted to look at a different section, if you felt like, ooh, this is not material that I want to be talking about, then you could still switch sections. You know, I want to be as transparent and open as I can be, so that way you're making a good decision for you, right, in terms of being in this class. So definitely take a look at the writing overview. And then we're going to get into the work of the class, right? And so this week you're going to be writing a short piece, or maybe it's a long piece, depending on what you have to say, based around Chimamanda Adichie's TED Talk called The Danger of a Single Story. And this concept of the single story is something that we will be revisiting throughout the semester. We're going to kind of tap into that and come back to that. I'm going to be asking you to have conversations about it on Discord. And then we're kind of weaving in some writing skills. These are more of just reminders about paragraphs and those kinds of things. You do have your first writing assignment this week, which is your single story. And again, you can read about that here, as well as the learning objectives. The learning objectives are important because this is what you, as the writer, will be reflecting on after you have submitted your assignment. A lot of you I know had questions about the grading, and I responded to many of you about, well, why don't you just wait until your first assignment, and then you'll begin to kind of see some of what I'm asking you to do in terms of reflecting on your own writing, your growth, your effort, that kind of thing. So your single story, again, it's got a Friday due date, but keep in mind that your Friday due date is the date that it shows up on your calendar, and on the dashboard you have the until date, which is Sunday at midnight. And that's basically kind of the arc of the major assignment that's due this week. The rest of this is getting you ready to read our first book, okay? If you don't have the book yet, try to get it this week. I know the LMC bookstore still had copies on Friday. It's Barefoot Gen 1. It's important. The 1 is important because this is part of a 10-book series, and we're only going to be reading the first one. So you need to have Barefoot Gen 1 for Monday. We'll start the book on next week, a week from today. But part of what I'm asking you to think about this week is kind of how do you read creative, this is called creative nonfiction, graphic novels, manga, how do you read it, right? And so these pages here kind of get you ready to think about, how do I read a book like this? Now, some of you are really familiar with this genre. Some of you really love it. Some of you may never have read a graphic novel before. And so, so these pages are here to kind of get you thinking about and get you ready to read this book. There's a question here on Discord that I want you to think about in terms of what you already know about Hiroshima. And then you have a writing territory due at the end of this week. Now, this week is our first week of mentor skills for the writing territories. As I mentioned in the writing territory overview, the mentor skill essentially introduces a skill that I want you to try in your writing for the writing territory. Each week I provide a reading and a breakdown of what the skill is. This week it's short sentences. And in the writing, you can see an author using it, and kind of, I ask you to think about, like, what does this do for the writing, right? And so each week is a different skill. You don't have to write about Jimmy Santiago Baca. You do not have to write about what he's writing about. The goal is for you to try the skill that he is using as the writer. So again, the mentor skills are designed to kind of instruct and kind of teach you about the skill, and to give you a space to practice it, and then you can also see what it looks like in real life. It's not just like you're reading a textbook page, but you can actually see, oh, here's what it looks like, and here's what it does for the writing. Again, writing territories are your bad piano. So you have a writing territory due on Friday, again with that grace period of Sunday. Okay. So that brings us to the end of this week. It doesn't look like there's necessarily a lot going on, but you do have quite a few things that you're juggling this week. Again, make sure that you put getting Barefoot Gen on the top of your list. LMC bookstore should still have copies. If they don't, then you can always find it on Amazon. Sometimes Chegg will have it. None of the used bookstores around LMC have had it in the past, so but that doesn't hurt to try. As always, if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to ask. You can send me an email via the Canvas email inbox or directly to my email address, which is on the syllabus. If you have any questions, don't hesitate. I'm here to help you, and I hope that you have a good week too. Have a great week, everyone.